The oncologist's words were still echoing in my head when Mom checked her phone for the third time in 5 minutes. Stage 2 Hodgkin's lymphoma, Dr. Peterson had said. Very treatable. We'll start aggressive chemotherapy next Thursday. The first session is critical for establishing your baseline and adjusting the protocol. I was 21 years old, sitting in an oncology office, trying to process the word cancer while my parents scrolled through their phones. Thursday, Dad looked up. What time? 9 in the morning, Dr. Peterson said. Plan for the whole day. The first infusion takes 6 to 8 hours and we need to monitor her closely. Mom and Dad exchanged a look I couldn't quite read. We'll make it work, Mom said, but her voice had that distant quality it got when she was already planning something else. In the car, Dad drove while Mom made a phone call. Yes, we'll definitely be there, she said into her phone. Wouldn't miss it. Bob's been talking about this wedding for months. My stomach dropped. Bob was Dad's coworker, the division manager who controlled promotions and assignments. Mom, I started. She held up a finger, still talking. The venue looks gorgeous in the photos. We're looking forward to it. She hung up and turned to me. Your father and I have an important event Thursday. Bob Harrison's daughter is getting married. The whole executive team will be there. My chemotherapy is Thursday. We know, honey, Dad said, eyes on the road. But this is a significant networking opportunity. Bob specifically invited us. He doesn't do that for everyone. It's my first cancer treatment. And you'll have many more, Mom said. The doctor said it's very treatable. One appointment isn't going to make or break anything. You can take an Uber to the hospital. I stared at her. An Uber to chemotherapy? Or ask a friend, she suggested. What about Jessica from work? Jessica is my coworker, not my cancer treatment support system. Sarah, don't be dramatic. Dad's voice had that edge that meant the discussion was over. We've been planning to attend this wedding for weeks. Your diagnosis doesn't change Bob's timeline. Networking matters more than one appointment. This could determine my next promotion. I looked out the window and said nothing. What was there to say? My parents had just told me that a coworker's wedding outranked my cancer treatment. That Thursday morning, I took an Uber to the hospital alone. The driver tried to make small talk until he saw where he was dropping me off. Then he went quiet. That uncomfortable silence people get around cancer patients. The infusion center was cold and sterile, filled with recliners where people my grandmother's age sat hooked up to IV poles. I was the youngest person there by at least 30 years. They gave me a heated blanket and inserted an IV into my arm. The port surgery was scheduled for next week, they explained. For now, they use a regular IV. The needle's pinch felt like nothing compared to the ache of arriving alone. Is someone coming to sit with you? The nurse asked, her voice gentle. The first treatment can be rough. Most patients bring family. Parents usually for someone your age. They had a wedding, I said. She gave me a look I'd see many times over the next 6 months. Pity mixed with confusion, mixed with something that looked like anger on my behalf. The look that said your family should be here, that said this is wrong, that said I'm sorry, but I can't fix this for you. The chemicals dripped into my veins for 7 hours. I watched them flow through the clear tubes, red and toxic and hopefully healing. I imagined them attacking the cancer in my lymph nodes, pictured them like tiny soldiers fighting a war inside my body. I tried not to think about my parents dancing at a wedding reception, tried not to wonder if they'd thought about me at all between the ceremony and the cake cutting, tried not to calculate the exact moment when the cocktail hour began and my infusion started, when they were toasting with champagne and I was trying not to throw up into a plastic basin. They came home at 11 that night, laughing about the open bar and the ice sculpture. How was it? Mom asked, kicking off her heels. Fine, I said. I was lying on the couch, nauseous and exhausted, but I'd learned something important that day. They weren't going to change, so I would. Over the next 6 months, the pattern repeated. My second infusion fell on the same day as Dad's company golf tournament. The third conflicted with Mom's department dinner. They made the fourth treatment, but Mom spent the entire time on work calls in the hallway. When my hair started falling out in clumps, I shaved it myself in the bathroom at 2 in the morning. When I couldn't keep food down for 3 days straight, I researched anti-nausea remedies online. When the port surgery left me unable to lift my arm for a week, I figured out how to dress myself one-handed. I made every appointment alone, every scan, every blood draw, every consultation where doctors discussed whether the treatment was working. I took notes on my phone, asked questions, and became my own best advocate because I had to. My parents paid the insurance copays and considered their obligation fulfilled. They mentioned my cancer at work, collecting sympathy and understanding when they needed to leave early or take calls. But they never actually left early. They never actually took the calls. The week I finished chemotherapy, my final scan showed complete remission. Dr. Peterson hugged me, tears in her eyes. "You did it," she said. "You beat it." I called my parents from the hospital parking lot. Mom answered on the fourth ring. "That's wonderful, honey. We're so proud. Listen, I'm in a meeting. Can we celebrate this weekend?" We never did celebrate. The weekend came and went with them attending a retirement party for one of Dad's colleagues. But I celebrated privately. I celebrated by making decisions. I was 22, cancer-free, and done waiting for my parents to prioritize me. I had kept taking online courses throughout treatment, studying between nausea waves, completing assignments in hospital waiting rooms. Now I doubled down. I finished my degree in 18 months, working remotely for a tech startup while my body regained its strength. The startup's founder noticed my work ethic, my attention to detail, my ability to show up even when things were hard, especially when things were hard. "You're different from other junior employees," he told me during my 6-month review. "You don't complain. You don't make excuses. You just solve problems." Where does that come from? Cancer had taught me that. When you can't rely on anyone else, you figure things out. When calling for help means calling people who won't come, you learn to help yourself. I was 24 when I made my first real money. The startup went through a successful Series B funding round, and my stock options suddenly had actual value. Not life-changing money, but enough to feel secure, to stop worrying about medical bill copays. I was 26 when we were acquired by a larger tech company. My payout was enough to start my own venture, enough to never feel financially vulnerable again. My parents knew I worked in tech. They didn't know the specifics. I didn't share them. "How's the computer job?" Dad would ask on the rare occasions I visited. "Fine," I'd say, the same answer I'd given about chemotherapy. I moved across the country, built my company carefully, methodically, hired people who showed up, created a culture where personal crises mattered, where employees could bring their whole selves to work, including the messy parts. My company grew. We hit 10 million in revenue, then 50, then 100. Tech journalists started calling me a rising star. Forbes mentioned me in an article about founders under 35. I was 31 when my mother called. "Sarah, honey, it's been so long." Her voice had changed, older, uncertain. "We need to talk about something important." "I'm busy, Mom." "It's about your father's medical bills." I stopped walking. I was on my way to a board meeting, wearing a suit that cost more than my parents had spent on my entire cancer treatment UVer budget. "What about them?" "He needs some procedures. The insurance doesn't cover everything. And our retirement accounts aren't where we thought they'd be. All those years of networking, but the pension changes hit us hard." "How much do you need?" "Maybe $5,000 a month, just until we get situated. We know you're doing well with your little tech thing." My little tech thing. The company I'd built was valued at $200 million. "Let me think about it," I said. That night, I did think about it. I thought about being 21 years old, bald and vomiting, taking an Uber to the hospital. I thought about my parents dancing at a wedding while chemicals dripped into my veins. I thought about every appointment I'd attended alone, every scan result I'd processed by myself, every terrifying moment when I'd wondered if I was going to die, and if my parents would even notice. I didn't call them back. Mom called again a week later. "Sarah, did you think about it? Your father's first procedure is scheduled." I did think about it. And no. Silence. Then, carefully, "What do you mean no?" "I mean I'm not giving you money." "But we're your parents. We raised you, supported you through college." "You supported me through college. You did not support me through cancer." "That's not fair." "We were there. You attended 4 out of 12 chemotherapy sessions. You missed my port surgery. You went to a golf tournament instead of my second infusion. You celebrated a coworker's retirement instead of my remission. We had obligations. So do I. And my obligation isn't to fund the retirement of people who told me networking mattered more than my cancer treatment." "Sarah, that's not what that's exactly what you said." Dad said those exact words. "Networking matters more than one appointment." Another long silence. "We didn't know you'd remember that." "I remember everything, Mom. Every wedding, every golf game, every dinner party. Every time you chose work events over your daughter's cancer treatment. I remembered all of it. You survived. The treatment worked. So what's the problem? The question hung in the air between us, loaded with everything they still didn't understand. What's the problem? As if survival erased abandonment. As if not dying meant I shouldn't have needed them. As if the absence of death somehow justified the absence of love. The problem, I said slowly, each word deliberate, is that you think I should be grateful I didn't die alone, when the real question is why I had to face dying alone in the first place. Why your 21-year-old daughter sat through 7 hours of chemotherapy by herself because you were networking over shrimp cocktails. We need help, Sarah. Medical bills, retirement, living expenses. We heard you're successful now. We saw an article about you online, some tech company worth millions, that profile in Forbes last month. So they had researched me, finally taking an interest in my life, reading articles about my company, learning my net worth from business journalists instead of asking me directly. Finally paying attention, now that it could benefit them. $200 million, I said. My company is valued at $200 million. I personally own 40% of it. The silence on the other end lasted so long I thought she'd hung up. $80 million? Her voice came out as a whisper. You're worth $80 million? Give or take, depends on the market. Then you can certainly help us. $5,000 a month is nothing to you. You're right, it's nothing to me. The same way my cancer treatment was nothing to you. One appointment, remember? Not worth missing a wedding for. Sarah, please. We're your parents. You were my parents, past tense. You stopped being my parents the day you chose Bob Harrison's daughter's wedding over my first chemotherapy. You just didn't realize it yet. You can't do this. We're family. Family shows up. You taught me that by not showing up, and I learned the lesson perfectly. I'm not showing up now. I hung up before she could respond. Blocked both their numbers, blocked their email addresses, and updated my emergency contacts to remove their names. My assistant knocked on my office door an hour later. Your mother is on the main line. She says it's urgent. Add her to the blocked caller list, please. Of course. Anything else? Yes. Make sure our employee benefits package includes comprehensive cancer treatment support, full coverage, transportation services, and mandatory paid time off for family members attending appointments. She nodded, making notes. That's generous. It's baseline decency, I said. No one should face cancer alone because their family had somewhere better to be. That evening, I looked at my calendar. 10 years since the diagnosis. 10 years since my parents chose networking over my cancer treatment. 10 years I'd spent building something they knew nothing about. I'd survived, not because of them, but despite them. And I'd succeeded the same way. Alone, on purpose, by choice. They left voicemails on my work line for weeks, then months. I had them forwarded directly to spam. Eventually, they stopped. I heard through a distant cousin that they'd downsized their house, that Dad had taken a part-time consulting job to cover expenses, that they told people their daughter was too busy and important to help her own parents. They were right. I was too busy building a company that treated employees like humans, too busy creating a workplace where people could bring their parents to chemotherapy without fear, too busy making sure no one who worked for me ever had to choose between family and networking. My parents had made their choice 10 years ago at a coworker's wedding. They chose networking. They chose advancement. They chose everything except me. Now I was choosing too. I chose success. I chose a life they weren't part of. I chose to be exactly what they taught me to be, someone who prioritized business over family. They just never expected to be on the receiving end of their own lesson. 10 years after they skipped my cancer treatment, I left them behind, not with anger, not with regret, just with the same casual prioritization they'd shown me. After all, they taught me well. Some things matter more than family obligations, like showing up for yourself when no one else will.